Welcome back to the Freedom Podcast, and we're here with another episode of Freedom People. And this is a really special one because I know this guy really well and have done a lot of years with this journey. Tevin, welcome to the Freedom Podcast.
What's up? What's up?
How you doing?
I'm great, man. Had a great day.
Come on, mate. You had your new haircut the other day, and I had to double take. I was like, "Who is this guy?" It all came off.
Yeah, no, same. I look in the mirror and I'm like, "Oh wait, that's me." Yeah,
What made you think I'm shaving it all off? Did you just have enough?
Yeah, I just wanted to look different.
Like a change, don't you?
Yeah, I do love change. So
You are a changeling, 100%.
For sure, I am.
Come on, Tevin. So good to have you on the podcast and hear a little bit of your story. Tevin, will you, I wonder, just start off with a little bit about your background and how you came into the church? Because I remember it, but lots of people who won't know you very well, because obviously you're a part of our church here in Raleigh, and I've seen you go on this journey here. But tell us a little bit of your story and your journey.
Yeah, for sure. So I grew up in church. I grew up Seventh-day Adventist, which is like another denomination. Um, and I just never really had a relationship with Christ. I just did it out of duty and out of just because my mom was kind of forcing us to, rather than just to go out of love and out of what I knew I needed. So just going through life, I just knew God was supreme ruler. I knew He was like number one on top. And I knew He was Father to a certain degree, but I didn't understand the relationship aspect of it. I didn't understand how important church was. I didn't understand how important prayer was, and just going through a journey of that throughout my whole life. I think when I turned 24, I hit like just a roadblock in my life, and I just needed something bigger than me. And I didn't know what that was. Like I just needed something bigger than me, and God always just draw me near to Him through like the time of like 24 to 25. He just kept drawing me near, and it just kept making more sense that He was the thing that I needed. So like I just remember driving home one day, and I was at the peak of my sadness and the peak of like what I was going through, and I just remember crying, and I just remember saying, Jesus, just take my life. Like, you can have my life. I don't want it anymore. Like, I don't want it. You can have it. And through that, he's just through that time. I honestly feel like that time, that heart cry. He heard that heart cry, and was like, "You're mine now." And I just went on a journey of learning Him more, like reading the Bible more, and listening to sermons, and just just really trying to figure out who God was, rather than like who my mom told me He was, or what I learned in church.
Right.
And I never thought I would go back to church. So like I was one of the Christians who was just like, it's just me and God. It's just me and God. And like through my journey with Him, I still felt like not a loneliness, but I felt like I needed to be around people, and I felt like I wasn't doing the right thing. I needed a community, and I never thought it would be church. But like my friend Summer, who people might know, Summer Hunter. I was going to say Summer Tevin, but Summer Hunter. She invited me to church when she's from Columbia, the same place I'm from. She moved to Raleigh. And she moved to Raleigh to be a part of Freedom Raleigh. And I was like, that's weird. Like, she left Columbia to be a part of a church. That's, I guess.
Which is like 4 hours away. Just if you don't know your American geography. So she moved 4 hours away. Yeah. She moved, I think it was like right when COVID hit. And she actually moved because she had seen Bailey's Bailey from our church here. She was part of our church planting team. She'd been following her on social media, seeing her church planting in South Africa, etc., and was drawn to the life there. She then moves. She then invites you,
right?
And so I remember meeting you that first time, because we were not able to do big meetings, so we had to meet outside in my backyard. I remember us putting the chairs out in our backyard, and you were sat on the end there, weren't you?
Yeah, I was still kind of, anxious and kind of barely talking to anybody, but still wanted to know what was this backyard about. I heard a bunch of Brits talking, and I was just like, what's going on here? Like, but yeah, like that was like the day. I think it was Saturday, and then we had church Sunday, and I remember I forgot what the preach was about, but I just remember after the service in the backyard, you came up to me with a word, and you said, "Tevin, you've been a lone wolf in your faith, and God's calling you to a community. He's calling you to be around people, basically." And like I think we had one conversation, and we never even talked about anything about what I've been through. It was obviously God speaking through you,
Mm.
and that was the first time I've ever experienced kind of like, oh, God speaking through somebody to me. Like I've never experienced that before. So that whole 4 hour ride home, I was like just stunned. I was just like, Lord, like you are real. Like you really spoke through this person to speak to me. And like, it's just amazing. And like I remember just I think it was like a week later or within the week, I texted you and I was like, man, I need to get baptized. Like I know God, has done something in my heart. I just want to express it. I just want to express it. And I need to get baptized by you, like by you specifically. Um, and it was during COVID. And I was like, man, I don't care if it's in a lake. I don't care where it is, man. Let's just go. Let's get it done. And you were like, I got a kiddie pool in my backyard. I was like, let's go to the kiddie pool. Like, let's get this thing over with.
I
Um,
have never baptized someone in such shallow water in all my life. It was like I think do we do it from standing up as well? I think we
we
need
were
to get
definitely
this.
standing up. We
We were
should
standing
have
up,
got
and
on our
I
knees.
got you wood down there, mate. That was an incredible workout that day. That was like taking you all the way
Yeah,
down into about 6 inches of water. It was
yeah,
crazy. But
it was
man, we
crazy.
baptized you, and it was amazing because you'd only just come. It's 4 hours there, 4 hours back
Yeah,
from where you were living, and then you're there, and you're like, man, I need to change my life. I need to give my
yeah,
whole life to God, and then to drive back and get baptized again. I think it was that week or 2 weeks later, something like that. It was very close. It
yeah.
was
Like
very
within a month.
it was very quick, and it just showed really the desire and the hunger for like I want God and I want to give him my
Yeah,
life, and I love that. And
mhm.
then it wasn't long, it was just within weeks, wasn't it, that you were moving to Raleigh. You'd also made the
Yeah.
decision.
God made a way. God made a way. It's funny because I tell people the story. I heard about Academy, and I didn't even think to do Academy, but I was like, oh wait, if I do Academy, then I'm gonna be in Raleigh. So I'm like, Lord, make a way for me to be in Raleigh. And like I saw Academy, I was like, okay, this is my way. I knew nothing about Academy, but I was like, this is my way to live in Riley, obviously. And yeah, so I came September when Academy started.
Wow, amazing. And it was quite incredible because you went, I think, from being quite isolated and alone
Yep.
to being
Hmm.
immersed in community. I remember you moved in with Dan and Manning, didn't you? They took you in
Yeah,
and you stayed with them for a
man.
bit. And
Yeah,
what was that like,
grateful.
Tevin, going from
Hmm.
being such a stark contrast of almost being very isolated into going into a community like that?
Yeah, it was tough for me because yeah, like you said, my whole life I've just been alone in a sense, like just been to myself and kept to myself and haven't been very vulnerable. Just yeah. And then when I became, when I believe God saved me, I was still kind of on that journey by myself. So it was kind of overwhelming to come around people who love God more than I love God. Like I thought I had this great, which I did have such a relationship with Christ, and just to see people that love God and like was wanting more from God, and like it was just so nerve wracking to begin because I'm like, dang, like how can I even be in this community when I felt like kind of like not the
Wow.
same. I struggled with like just the idea of like identity. Like even then, I'm like, okay, I have to be like this. I have to be like this. But like yeah, it was a struggle to begin with, but like I knew that what I felt, the love that I felt was stronger than like those feelings of feeling like comparison and things like that. So I knew I had to just stay and find myself in this new place, rather than just like shying away. So yeah, it was tough, but it's turned into yeah, the biggest blessing because we all get to be ourselves, and it's just amazing. We
Come on,
come
Tevin.
together differently, but we all get to, be ourselves together. So
I love it. And what do you think over that year? Like, what was the, because really you'd never been a part of the Bride of Christ before. You'd never really been
mm-mm.
immersed in church.
Yeah,
What do you think was the biggest thing that God did in you through that year? Because you went from really not knowing a lot, maybe about how that works, how the church works, maybe a lot about faith, to then
yeah,
you're doing several days a week the course, you're at groups, you're involved in all the
yep.
aspects of church. What do you think was the biggest thing that God did in you in that first year?
I think that first year, the biggest thing he did was it was around purity. It was around purity,
Nice,
just purifying my thoughts, my heart,
right?
my intentions, my motives, and that happened through accountability. Just just being around people and just having mentors like you, like Dan, speaking in my life, and you've seen me my struggles and
Yeah,
things I've been through, and yeah, like it's just he's done a lot through accountability, and
that's great.
yeah, it's been great.
Great. I love that, mate. And I think that's so true.
Yeah,
Is that you have to be vulnerable enough, humble enough to let people begin to speak into your life. Um, and that can be a difficult thing when you've been
for
going your
sure.
own way, because it's like,
It
hey, no
was
one tells me what to do. And then it's like,
right.
actually, I'm going to listen to someone. I'm going to submit. I'm going to humble myself. That is a big shift. And I think even for those that are listening to this, maybe you're not
Mm,
involved right now in a church community. I would say that it's so worth taking those steps of humility and
yeah,
allowing God to lift you up as you do that, because when we humble ourselves, God lifts us up. And I think that that's what God's done in your journey. Is that it was humbling, it
for
was
sure.
hard, there were some tough conversations, there were some things that had to change, but as you went on that journey, it's like you've been through the other side of that. God has purified you, um,
Mhm.
and strengthened you through it. And
He has.
I remember coming to the end of the year, and I was your so we would get together and do one-on-ones, and I took you out on my canoe. Was that your first time on the canoe? Had you ever canoed before? I can't remember.
Definitely my first time.
I
Yeah,
think it was
definitely
your
my
first
first
time,
time.
wasn't it?
Yeah,
So
yeah. I
I've
love
got my
things like that.
canoe, and I've pushed Tevin out onto the water, and he's on the lake with me. There's no escape, and
There's
I'm
no
gonna.
hiding, no escaping.
You can't escape. Is that right? I'm going to ask the most difficult questions now, because there's nowhere to go. I think it even started just, the raindrops started coming down as well. It was just gently, gently raining. And I remember
Yeah,
us talking about marriage. And you said to
yep,
me, I'm never going to get married. I just don't
yeah,
think that's for me. I'm just not really
mm-hmm.
interested in that. And
Yeah,
I don't really think that's what God has for me. And you were quite you surprised me a little bit with how strong you were on it. It's like, yeah, no, I'm sure that's where I am. And then we sit here today, a few years later, and you
yep.
are a married man, aren't
I
you?
am.
You met
I am a
Caroline at the
married man.
church, and just talk to me a little bit about what
Right.
God did through that, where you almost quite resolute on how you thought your life was going to be and who you were, and then how that changed.
Yeah. I think I'm still like trying to understand that. I think it's just like dying to self. That's the only thing I can say.
Right.
Like dying to self and understanding that God's will is better than my will. I think
Mm,
I just thought, I don't know, it might have been past experiences or
right.
just my mind being worldly of like, oh, like marriage isn't good. Like, I don't know what, I can't put a finger on what exactly it was. I know I was adamant. I was like strong about it, but like it really just died away the more I followed Christ. The more I followed Christ, the more I saw like
Right.
his will for
Wow.
my life. And the more I was like, wait, I do want to be a dad, and I do want to be a husband, and I do want to, lead a family. Um, so yeah, I'll say like just dying to self really, really just opened my eyes to the idea of marriage.
Yeah, right. You thought you were so set on a plan, and then you met
Hmm.
Caroline, and things changed.
Yeah, yes. No, it's true. It's true. She's an amazing woman. She just completes my life. Like
Come on,
It's
mate.
yeah,
She is
it's
awesome.
amazing.
And I remember
Yeah,
being there at your wedding and speaking to your dad. And actually, he shared, didn't he, in his speech, and he was very tearful about the man that
yeah,
he would become because of really your interaction with the church, your
yeah,
relationship with Jesus. And he was moved. I saw him again this weekend, and he was moved again.
yeah,
But he was living with you, wasn't he, at the time when you said, "Hey, I'm
yep,
going to be up and moving over to Raleigh, and I'm going to like live a different life. I'm going to start following Jesus." You know, you and him were
yeah,
close, and you had a great relationship, and then
yeah,
you had to move away from that, let that go, and he's seen the change in you, and he was testifying at the whole wedding. It was actually one of the
yeah.
most
Crazy.
moving and honoring wedding speeches I've heard towards what God can do in a person when they
Yeah,
say, like, look what God's done in my son, look what he's done through the church community. It was amazing.
yeah. It really was. It was so cool to just see his perspective, like on on life, on how he saw his son.
Yeah.
It was just the coolest thing ever, and I'm forever humbled by like the words he said. Like I'm forever humbled by that because like my dad isn't one to speak like that to me
Yeah,
on one on
right.
one. So like, and we'll get there sometimes, but like for him to really just go out like that, like it just opened my eyes
Yeah.
to how much God has changed him also. In those times where we lived together, like we were both on our journeys. Like my dad wasn't
Mm,
a Christian for most, about 50 years of his life. So it's like we were both on the journey of finding Christ together. And like me leaving was like almost it was necessary for his faith in a
right.
sense because he like got to see, like what you're saying, like the change in me, and it's done a lot in him. And it's just very humbling, very humbling.
Come on, man. It is an amazing thing to see how God impacts whole families like that. And
Yeah,
I know
it's
that He
crazy.
is so proud of the man that you are and the man that you're becoming. And the reason that he was up this last weekend and I got to see him briefly was because
Yeah,
he was there for the album launch. And
yeah.
you launched your new album. I actually think it comes out the 27th of March, so probably the day that this is
27th
also
March.
released. So
Yep.
people can go and click on that. How can they find that, Tevin, on Spotify? Is it just Tevin Bloom?
Yeah, Tevin Blume. Blume. So my name, Blume.
And
Tevin
the
Blume.
album is called
It's called Dirt.
Dirt.
Dirt. Yeah.
Nice. Okay, we'll get
Yeah.
into that in a moment. But if you don't know Tevin, you've probably, if you're a part of Freedom Church, you've probably heard him rapping at some point because he wrote the Up the Mountain and performed that as well for us. And then he also just did the Making of the King lyrics as well,
Yeah.
which is also so great. So lots of people have been hearing that and have it had it played around the world in a number of our churches or seen it online on YouTube.
So cool.
And you've got to introduce those series for us. And mate, you have smashed that. You've just brought it to life. And I remember when the Up the Mountain one came out, everyone was like, "Whoa, what is this? This is so different. It's so contrasting. It's so fresh." And it really was great for us as Freedom Church to be able to do something that
Yeah.
communicated something of culture that we've not been able to do before. So I love what you bring to
Mm,
our church across the
mm.
world and the creativity that's within you. But you've been writing. How long have you been writing music?
I say I started when I was like 13, like
So you were doing it as a
13 probably.
13-year-old, a teenager in
Yeah.
your room, and um,
Mm-hmm.
and mixing, rapping, writing
Yep.
lyrics. Talk to me a bit
Yeah.
about that songwriting journey because I remember when you were first coming into the church, obviously a lot of what you were writing, it wasn't really Christian. It was just it was something of whatever I guess you were feeling and whatever
Right.
was on your heart. But when I was at the
Mm.
album launch the other night, which was so good, it was amazing, and I do encourage
Thank you.
everyone to go and check out the music because it is so fresh. It is such a great vibe. Lots of people love rap, but there are hardly any options out there that you
It's
can
true.
listen to
It's
that
true.
are clean, that give
Hmm.
glory to God, but that are not
Right.
cheesy and not, fit into a certain
Right.
category. But what Tevin's done is so good. It hits
Wow.
those things. So you got to check it out. You got to check out Dirt.
Appreciate
Um,
that.
but Tevin, tell me a bit about that journey that you went on, where your songwriting, I imagine, changed. Because when I saw you
Hmm.
at the album launch, I saw a man worshiping on stage. I didn't see just
Wow.
someone who likes rap music or, hey, I want to just do this performance for you. I saw a man who was seeking God, who was in God's presence, who was declaring the truths of God. But I
That's
know
awesome.
from talking to you before, that's not always been the journey, right, with your writing. So talk
Yeah,
to us a bit
for
about that.
sure. For sure. Yeah, when you're 13 writing music, it's probably not the best, topic matter, and just a bunch of ignorant stuff I used to make. I think,
You got to
yeah, I
start
just
somewhere, though, haven't you?
no, for sure, for sure.
And
And I still I still have a couple of old songs that I listen to. I'm like, that's so cool. Like I was doing that at 15 years old, but I think I just never really had identity. I never really had an idea of who I was, and like through music, it came out. It just bled through, just like I didn't know who I was, but I was just making what I thought was cool, and I was making what I felt, and a lot of it was depressing, and a lot of it was kind of you just sense and anxiety, and you just sense that I didn't know who I was if you listen to it
right,
now.
right.
And I think I still found pride in it. I still was like, oh, I'm cool. Like I make really good music. Like people like wish they could make music like this, and people like wish that they could rap like this. And I think you know it just grew to that point. Even when I'm like 24, 23, where I'm encountering God, I'm still like in this mindset of, oh, like I'm really good at this. And I honestly think, like I was in a 3-bedroom house by myself. The loneliest I've ever been. I was renting a house, and I would just work on music. And there was like a year period where I couldn't make anything. Like I couldn't write nothing. I couldn't produce nothing. I was just frozen in my gifting. And I think that's the point where God really got a hold of me and was just like, he showed me how small I was and showed me how just like how much faith I had in myself. And yeah, like, and I think he really just gave me writer's block and showed me like, you got this for me. Like, this is
Wow.
my gift that I gave to you. And, yeah, like, and, overcoming that, getting closer to God, I was just like, God, you can have it. You can have music. I don't want to do it anymore. Like I don't want to do it anymore. You can have it. Like, and I gave him the gift. Literally, I stopped doing it. I gave him the gift, and I didn't think I would get it back. I didn't think that it would come back to me. And I think over time, he's shown me. And the biggest lesson I learned is this is a gift from God, and it's to glorify God, and it's to give God praise and to give God worship. And I can speak about my experiences, but they have to be more testimonial, and they have to make there has to be light in it. It can't be a dark place. It can't be this thing that I just use. um so I look at it much more as like a gift. Look at it much more as like, God has given me this gift to write, and I want to glorify him in it. Like, it's as simple as that. I think before I was like glorifying myself, um and he just shifted my whole entire heart, my whole entire mindset.
Come on.
And I remember showing you like I had 400 songs, like literally
Yeah.
400 songs.
That was crazy.
um and all of them, it's hard to just throw those away. It's hard to,
Mm.
because you're just like, dang, this is like, I could still use this. But like, I just had to get rid of those and start fresh, like start
Wow.
fresh with him. And nowadays, like, it is truly like, I don't write a song unless God's with me. Like, I don't well, I'll say I don't release a song unless God's with me. Like, unless I go over with God, you know, I don't release it because I don't want to play anymore. Like, it's all for him and all for his glory.
So talk to me a bit about your process, Tevin, where you
Yeah.
actually start writing. Obviously you work a full-time job. You're a married
Yeah.
man. You're very involved with the church. Like, imagine one of the things is just finding the time to do it. But when
Yeah.
you do find that time, how do you click into that mode? Does it just flow? Do you pray?
Yeah.
What's that look like for you?
Yeah. I honestly think it's me communing with God. I
Mm,
honestly, I get in front of the computer and I just, it's not like a intentional thing. I'm not like, all right, Lord, but I honestly feel like I'm communing with him. So like it's almost like prayer for me. It is like sometimes I pray about other people, sometimes I just thank the Lord, sometimes I pray about myself, and that's kind of how I look at music, like communing with him. Sometimes I'll make a
wow.
song about somebody else, sometimes I'll make a song about me, what I'm going through, and sometimes I'll make a song, just to glorify God and thank him. So that's really my process. Like, and it's really just a flow state. Like I just get into this flow state, and it comes out in lyrics, it comes out in producing, and how the beats go and how the sounds go. Like everything is that conversation, and that communion. So like every single part of it is is that communion. It's a beautiful thing.
That's so great, Tevin. I love it. And I think that there's probably a lot of people that have gifts within them
Yeah.
that don't use them. And maybe even through this conversation, people are a little bit like struggling because obviously through our church, we've got this warrior poet DNA, which is we believe
Yeah.
that God is a creator. He made us to be in his image so that we are also meant to reflect creativity. And yet
Yeah.
so often we don't find that within the church, or
Yeah.
it can be very safe, or it can be without the color that creativity brings. But some people may be listening to this like, there's that within me too. I need to do something. What would you say to some of those people that have maybe been feeling that, but not yet done anything with it?
Yeah. I think I think often creatives get in their own way. Like especially if you do it if you're trying to do it in a godly way, you kind of get in your way and you get in God's way. And like I'll just say, it's God's gift. He's given you these gifts so He can flow out of you. Like let him just flow out of you. Like it could be as simple as that. It could be as simple as yeah, like let God flow out of you. He's given you the gift. Like He's given
Mm,
you it. He hasn't given it to nobody else, and what you can do with it, nobody else is going to do with it. So, like, it's up to you. It's up to you to just let God flow through you. Uh, get out of your way. Stop. I'll say like I'm speaking to myself also, but like just the idea of like perception, fear of man, all of that, man. Like
mm.
fear God more than you fear man, and let Him rock. Let Him go through you. Like yeah,
And I think about um, the thousands of people listening to this, or that are in Freedom Church, and I think the there is so much talent and gifting locked
yeah,
away. It's like a gold mine. It's like out of all the people from Cambodia to India to the Netherlands to
mm-hmm,
Cardiff, like there is so much
mm-hmm.
gifting, but I don't think we see anywhere near the return of what's there. I think that
Wow,
there is so much ability, so much gifting, but it goes untapped. That one of the things that struck me a few years ago is that we were our church had grown from um, just being in one place in Little Hereford in the UK to
yeah,
being in 20 places, 25 places, and
mm-hmm,
we were still using maybe some of the same songwriters that we had 10 years ago, or we're still using some of the same giftings in other ways. I'm like, that doesn't even make sense. We have
yeah, yeah.
unlocked so many more other people and potential around the world. So what do you think sometimes is stopping that from coming forward? Because I think about you with those
Mm-hmm.
hundreds of songs, and I remember
Right,
talking to you, like, why don't you release them?
right,
What are you waiting for in a way? But what do you
right.
think stops people from actually going from being someone who is creative to actually moving to someone that is being fruitful with that and sharing it?
Mm, that's a tough question. Um, Honestly, to be brash, I think it's pride. Like, I don't know. I can only speak from my own experience, really. I think for me, it was pride. I think oftentimes it could be pride, just the idea of this is mine, or like people are gonna like look at me and perceive me um, a certain way, or like what if like I do it wrong, or what if like like all these things could float through your mind, and I probably won't give the best answer, but like I think um, we just get in our own way. I think we do, but I also think people need opportunities. I think there's a lot of gifted people, like you're saying, around the world and around in freedom, and I think sometimes it's also up to like people like leaders to see that potential or to see that opportunity, like how you saw in me, and you, you had me rapping barbarians, because you saw that potential. And I think sometimes it really is as a creative, looking up to somebody they respect, and that person saying, hey, I see this in you.
Yeah.
Let's get it out of you. um, yeah, speaking life
Yeah.
over somebody's creativity.
I think as well, Tevin, what you were saying earlier about flow, that actually when God turns on the tap and you're receiving something, it's got to come out.
Yeah,
And I think that actually when the flow is happening, because otherwise you just become like a pond, like a lake, you just store it, and there's
yeah,
no output. And I think that you've got
yeah,
to almost share what God gives you, and as you share that,
yeah, yeah,
it almost brings the vacuum, it brings the flow, because there's the output. And I think sometimes one of the things we've got to start doing is being bolder to share,
yeah,
and braver and vulnerable enough to say, I'm going to share this, I'm going to put it out there,
yeah,
because that takes a lot of courage. But even like when you were
yeah,
sharing some of the album the other night, and you had like friends there, family members there, people from church, and there was so much love and support, wasn't there, in the room,
yeah.
because like people are like for you. And
So
I think
blessed.
that
Yeah,
that's one of the big things, is that if you know that there's a purpose to what I'm doing, I think it then helps create
yeah,
that flow. Rose writes poetry. She writes some amazing poems. Actually, she's got one, isn't she, on the album,
yeah. She
which is
does.
cool. She's
She
a feature.
does.
And
Yeah, she made it.
but one of the things is when she doesn't share them, she generally stops writing, and it's almost like
Yeah,
when she shares them, and has that outflow,
so true.
there is that almost causes more writing. But when she says, "Oh, I'm not going to share. I'm going to take a break off social media," it almost like shuts up the shop for her. So I know that's not everyone, but that's her experience. And I thought
Yeah,
that was really interesting, that because of that, that the output isn't there, that the inflow almost stops.
that is so good. That is so good. Like, yeah, like if you look at yourself as a faucet, you just turn it off, but you're the only one that has that.
Yeah.
Like you're the only one that has that gift. Like
Yeah. You're the
nobody
only
else is gonna
one.
fill that
Mm.
void. Nobody else will. So it's like, yeah, you're just stopping something. Yeah, that's. I agree with that totally.
And I think now with YouTube, with TikTok, with social media, Instagram, Spotify, there is so
Yeah.
much opportunity to share creativity more than ever
Mm-hmm.
before.
Mm-hmm.
And I think sometimes it's just about putting it out there, isn't it? And taking those steps. And
Yeah.
that's why I love that you're releasing the album.
Yeah.
And so excited you get, because I know you've been working on this for a while now. But talk to us a little bit about the album, Tevin, about like what this is
Mhm.
about. What's the concept, and why did you call it Dirt?
Yeah. So the concept is when a flower blooms. Just basically like the stage of growth. Um, a metaphor for the stage of growth. Like I call it dirt because often that's what we feel the most within growth. I think um, just being around and you feel nothing around you, you feel like nothing you can grasp, or you just feel like that you're growing, but you don't see it. You don't see no output of it, and there's almost sometimes you don't feel hope. So I think I'm speaking into the idea of um, yeah, just there is hope. There is light at the end of the tunnel. There is one day you will be a flower. One day from a seed to a flower. I think I don't like to overcomplicate it and make it more than it is. I think, just
Yeah,
dirt. You're in dirt, and then you
But
grow and you become a flower. Yeah.
yeah, what's the lyric though with the dirt? It's
The dirt is where you grow. It's not a grave.
yeah,
So yeah, like in growth, you often feel like you're like, God, where are you in this? Like, where are you at? Like, I know you're here, but like, did you not just see what just happened to me? Or did you not just, and I think oftentimes we could just speak death over ourselves. And I'm just saying, like, speak life over yourself in those times of growing, instead of, yeah, have a more hopeful approach. Yeah.
it's brilliant. And Tevin, I wonder actually if you could share some lyrics of one of the songs. I don't know about the one about grace or the one about dirt or something like that, but I wonder if you could just share a
Yeah.
few lyrics with us and just give us a little bit of
Uh,
a taste of what they're. You don't have to rap it, but I was just wondering if you could,
okay. Okay.
yeah, just read them out for us.
All right, I got a song. It's called Garden, and it goes like it's basically about the woman at the well. Um, but it goes, "Excuse me, pardon. I got some hands you can put your heart in. I'll be there when you need watering. You're my favorite flower in the garden.
Wow,
When I met you at the well, I fell in love with you. Had to let you know, can't get enough of you. I can't get enough of you." Yeah,
I love it,
there's a
mate.
little
It
something.
was that was brilliant one, and I can't
Appreciate
wait for
that.
people to hear it as it goes out.
Yeah,
And it is really special. And what I love about it, you can feel the worship through it. So I hope it
that's
encourages and ministers
awesome.
to people. Tevin, thanks so much for being on the Freedom Podcast. Thanks for coming and sharing some of your story.
Thanks for having me.
And
Yeah,
I'm excited for people to listen to this album too. Dirt, it's out now. You can get it on
yeah.
Spotify. Go
Go
and have a
listen to it.
listen. And I would say as well, as we're doing this Freedom People series, and you think you know someone across Freedom Church that has got a unique story, or they've got some gifting, or they're involved in something in this world that's impacting culture or impacting our world in some way, maybe you can nominate them and let know. You know, it's hard sometimes to nominate yourself that, hey, I want to share my story, but maybe you know someone that, hey, we can just give a little invitation to. So get in touch if you'd like to do that. You can do that on the Freedom Church Instagram. But thanks so much for joining, Tevin. Thanks so much for listening, everyone. We'll be back next week with another episode.
Thank you, Josh.